The first thing that happened when we got through that checkpoint in Kalandia, a fucking fruit seller shouting to us in Arabic, and the translators, like, he's saying, people were asking me, like, how does Israel do better at explaining their position to the world stage? And the one problem I noticed with Israelis, especially Israeli public figures, is that you're doing the same level of intellectual dishonesty as someone who demands the fucking order from Hitler to do the Holocaust. I'm sorry.
Up on the screen now, 77% say you could conceivably change your mind depending on what you hear, 23% no. So this debate is very much in play as we begin, and that's what we're going to do right now. With opening statements, Douglas Murray, you're up first, 6 minutes on the clock.
Do you know any human rights organizations that agree more with the Israeli narrative? I don't know. I feel like with UN reports, it's like hit and miss. Some UN reports actually do serve Israel's narrative well enough, and other ones massively go against it. I don't know if it's because of who's writing the reports or just because, like, maybe they just agree that the facts are sometimes on Israel's side and sometimes they're not. Because the report that made fucking the Intercept people and all the far left people really angry about the sexual assaults on October 7th, that came from the UN. That probably means it's balanced. I don't know, though, because it seems to be the way that they draw conclusions from different studies seems kind of fucked. Like, some of them, it seems like they understand the concepts that they're analyzing very well, and their methodology makes sense, and there aren't any, like, glaring flaws. But then there are other UN reports that are just horrible. Example, the one on the Great March of Return is horrible. It's a really bad report. It's bad in the sense that they completely either ignored or just negligently missed so many of the people that were killed at the front of the fence who were part of militant organizations. And it's also a problem that they seem to understand the concepts of continuous combat function or applying IHL to the border fence being part of a militarized armistice line and it being a military target. It seems to be that they cite sources that would easily back up that argument, but they just kind of brush it off, and they don't really give a good argument for why they brush it off. So yeah, that's pretty flawed in my opinion. Or the way every human rights report just seemed to ignore the fact that Hamas themselves claimed over 150, maybe even 170, 80 of those police officers who were killed in the initial strikes as Al-Qassam Brigades members. Like, I don't know why Hamas would say they are, but human rights reports would say they're not, or we don't know. And actually, I pushed the interview that I had with the B'Tselem lady. It wasn't like a combative interview, but I did bring her up on that point. And the response she gave to me was that it was really not that satisfactory. She said that B'Tselem in Cast Lead had listed the police deaths as not applicable to either engaged in hostilities or civilian. She said they were not applicable, all 254 of them or whatever, which makes sense because she acknowledged that there was a dispute between Israel and Hamas about whether or not they were militants, and how integrated they were, and with the Goldstone report. But I told her that the Hamas website had acknowledged that many of them, most of them, like Israel said, most of them were Al-Qassam brigades. And she understood the concept of continuous combat function and all that, but she said that B'Tselem didn't have that information at the time, which seems weird because the Orient study that Israel put out in their defense of those strikes was already public. It was already brought up in the Goldstone report at the time. Now, maybe the timeline's slightly off. Like, maybe the B'Tselem report came before the Goldstone report, but then it doesn't make sense either because she said that B'Tselem reformats, that they would not reformats, but they would issue corrections and they would issue updates. But as far as I can tell, I don't think they have an update for the police deaths in Cast Lead. They've just left it as 254 people not applicable. We don't know if they're combatants or not for all of them, which is very odd to me. It was because it was bizarre to me that she had actually understood the concept very, very well and understood the research methods and understood the way you would get to the conclusion that they were not police officers. But as far as I know from B'Tselem themselves, there's never been an update on that, which really makes me wonder about what their political motivations are, but, can only guess. You said you formatted my numbers on Goldstone. Oh, where? Where's that? So did you is it the Google Doc that you posted? Is this it? Hang on. Let me see this. Oh, you did, yeah. Oh, but okay, so this is actually quite good. But so what I need to do now is organize all of this into. I didn't actually match up all the Orient ones. I really should have, but I got really bored of going through matching the Orient bio with their bio. But I wonder, this is a good start. So what I should do now is I need to make a full list of matching every name with the Orient study. That's what I need to do. What's the reasoning behind nitpicking reports on the March of Return? What does it provide? It's not nitpicking, bats and badgers. It's not nitpicking at all. It's showing you that the entire narrative that is derived from those reports is not what people say it is. Like the way people like Finkelstein or Ryan Grimm or anyone else who retell the story of that event, they are retelling it in a dishonest way. What does countering that narrative provide? Okay, even if it provides nothing, which I don't think is true, but even assuming it provides nothing, the truth matters. I don't choose what I talk about based on what ideological fucking goal I'm trying to achieve. I want to know what happened with that people are talking about it. So that's a good enough reason in and of itself. I guess politically, the problem is that when people say Palestinians or Palestinian political factions have tried nonviolence as an approach to deal with Israel, people always refer to the Great March of Return. They say that, yeah, look, we tried nonviolence and the IDF just shot us anyway, so that's why people believed October 7th was the only alternative. That's a narrative that people give, and it's false. There has never been a concerted, like, even when nonviolence happens, and it is actually very well disciplined within the Palestinian movement, it's happening alongside other factions who are engaging in like massive levels of violence. So I don't think it's a sufficient narrative to say that to use the Great March of Return as a way to wave off the idea that nonviolence might serve Palestinians better or would have served them better than something like October 7th did. Sorry, just for chat, because you guys are already annoying me. All right. I'm going to do a very quick disclaimer, and then we're going to watch the bit where he apparently talks about my journeys, my traveling Israel. Just so you guys know, what are my goals as a YouTuber, streamer, wanker, twat, all right? My goal is because I want to know, I like learning things, okay? If there's something that happened, I want to know exactly what happened. I want to be correct on things. I want to have correct positions. I want to be able to make correct political prescriptions. That's what I care about, okay? I am not here to support or fucking spearhead anyone's national cause. I have political aspirations. I think there are some things in the world that I'd like to happen and other things in the world that I would like to happen. But if there is a fact that interferes with one of those political goals, I'm not going to hide from that fact. I'm going to acknowledge it. I'm going to check things that might contradict my worldview, because if they do, if it turns out that I have a position and there is a more accurate or more morally correct position out there, I would rather be taken to the more accurate, morally correct position. So that's why I'm here, okay? I'm not here to be fucking Israel's great savior. I'm not here to be the Palestinian savior. I want to know what happens in the world. And I want to know what should be done in the world. Okay? We all good? It's so, when I was at the fan meetup in Israel, there was this one dude who spoke about my traveling Israel videos on YouTube. And they were talking about how, like, oh, it's really great to see you becoming a bit more sympathetic to Israel's position in the world, et cetera, et cetera. And the example they used was the traveling Israel video. And they were like, yeah, it's good to see that you've changed your mind since making that video. And I'm like, what exactly did I change my mind on in the traveling Israel video? I asked him, but like, obviously he couldn't answer because I don't know what I've changed my mind on in the traveling Israel video. I think I agree with everything I said in that. But it seemed to be that there's this mind state that people live in where, I guess because I was attacking a more pro-Israel person, or just a pro-Israel propagandist, because that's what he is, people just assumed that because I went after that guy in a fairly measured way, every source I used to debunk that guy was from Zionists, because I know what they're like. I know what's more convincing to the other side. And people thought, like, I guess maybe some people, pro-Palestinian or pro-Israeli, thought that by choosing to make those videos and to talk about those topics, that I was like just knee deep in the pro-Palestinian camp. that I would just believe everything that the typical Western pro-Palestinian mouthpiece would believe, and I would oppose everything that the typical pro-Israel person would believe. I just thought it was really weird that people just, they expect things to be a part of like a pattern. There are like constellations, like the way that people think, and they assume that because you believe A, you should believe B and C, and you shouldn't believe D, E, and F. Yeah, I don't know, sorry. Seems like a really common thing, which is why a lot of people, if I start fighting with pro-Israel people, I'll get a whole bunch of pro-Palestinian people in here who think that just because I disagree with, just because I'm fighting with the same people they would like to fight with, then I must be on their side for everything. Also, being pro-Israel or pro-Palestine, to me, like both of these positions are incoherent. Because, for one, what counts as pro-Israel in this world, in our space, in the Western left-leaning space online, is so different from what it means over there. Not just for Israelis. For Israelis, pro-Israel means, or anti-Israel rather, that could mean supporting a Palestinian state within, like, roughly along the 67 borders. Even like being pro Camp David or Ehud Barak, like 87% of the West Bank going to the Palestinians, that's considered a pro-Palestinian position to most Israelis. People who are left-wing in Israel, like, and left in Israel just means you support a Palestinian state to some degree. They'll call you a traitor for that. That's why all the left-wing Israeli leaders have to have massively impressive military backgrounds, because it's the only way the rest of the population will trust them. It's also true, and I didn't know this, it's also true for Palestinians who live in Israel. If you know another story, we were in a house, a Muslim family's house in Israel, and there was someone there who recognized friend of the show, Dustin. And she was looking at him funny. She knew. She knew his Twitter account. She was like, why is that guy here? They were speaking in Arabic, so I got to hear this secondhand. They're speaking in Arabic, and she's like, why is that guy here? Isn't he like massively pro-Israel or whatever? And then in that discussion, one of them brings up that Destiny is pro-two-state solution, right? Palestinian state. And then someone's like, wait, why is that pro-Israel? Like that's not a pro-Israel position in that country, right? It's so even in the Palestinian community in Israel, you can be pro-two states, and to them, that's a pro-Palestinian position. Like that's not really what pro-Israel means to them. This kind of insane maximalist fucking demands that you see online, they might exist in, they definitely exist in Gaza. They definitely exist in large parts of the West Bank. But even then, supporting a two-state solution is more than the Palestinians have ever had. Two states is more than Palestinians have ever had. It would advance their position in the world leagues beyond what they've ever had so far. I mean, you talk to the Israeli right-wingers, if you're even pro two states or even like a smaller second state, they call you an Israel shrinker. Like that's one of the terms I heard from that fucking Yishai Flesher guy. We aren't asking what pro-Israel means to Palestinians. Yeah, but I'm telling you what it means to Palestinians. At least Palestinians who live in Israel. Because again, Palestinians who live in Israel are not the same as Palestinians who live in the West Bank. That's true. But insofar as you want a Palestinian state, for most Palestinians, I think, even in the West Bank, I think you're probably on their good side for wanting that. Because it's more than they've ever had. You lied to the family. Well, first of all, I don't speak Arabic, you fucking moron. I wasn't talking to the family. This was the family talking to each other. Is it a lie to say that Destiny is pro two states? I feel like he's been advocating for a two-state solution since October 7th. What tweet has Destiny done that says there shouldn't be a Palestinian state? What? Does the family know Destiny said Palestine never existed? Maybe one of them does, because one of them knew his Twitter account. The whole point this conversation starting was because someone knew his Twitter account. The difference is, bats and badgers, is people who live over there aren't so privileged as you are that they care about these weird signals that don't actually mean anything about what you want for the world going forward. So I'd imagine they probably don't care. What do you mean there was no Palestine? Like there was no state? That's true, there wasn't a state. Was there a country? Not really. There was the British Mandate of Palestine, which encompassed all of it, which was, again, like that was the British that called it that. What the fuck does that mean? There was no Palestine? In what sense? To summarize your position, you're anti-Israel and anti-Palestine. True. Anyway, whatever.
Loner box at this point too. The guy's cozying up to D far too much. I
Uh-oh.
think he's, you know, he's been a friend of Destiny's for quite a while. I'm just more so shocked because he was like pretty level-headed about Israel in the past. Anyway,
again, the videos that Hasan's seen, I still agree with most of what I said in them. The one thing I maybe agree with less is, let me see. Let's look at my channel. But this is the thing, is like you fight with the right people on the right points. Like I could literally just do my entire channel fighting with right-wing settlers and people would think I'm the same as Hasan. I don't get it. Yeah, as far as all these ones post October 7th, I agree with basically everything I said here. I can't think of anything I don't agree with. This one I agree with. This one I agree with all of it. This one, where's the one, the Netanyahu one? This one, I'm probably a bit too charitable towards Arafat in this one. More so than I should be now. But you might want to stop assuming people who critique things in your chat are privileged teens. When I assume that you're a privileged teen by the way you're talking, that's me being generous to you. Because if you're an adult, then you have no excuse to talk the way you're talking. Sorry. Again, it's not really about what you believe or what you want for the world. It's just about what side you're standing on for whatever particular debate or drama or whatever. The apartheid video, that was like 2 years ago. There's a lot in that I disagree with now. Yeah. What, the one where I'm citing like Ilan Pape and yeah, I don't. I think Beast Process as part of that video is pretty good. Like it's very, it's very dry. It's very facts-based. It's very like empirically accurate on the conditions. But no, my part of that video was pretty shit, I think. Yeah, that was a while ago. But when people say I've changed, Hasan's not talking about a video I made 2 years ago. He's talking about me from like October 7th.
The government of...
The only thing Lonerbox does these days is make content about you? Really?
It's not the only thing I do.
I didn't even know he was... Is he?
Uh-oh.
The fuck kind of content could he be making about me in terms of like... In terms of like my recent commentary on Israel, unless he's like, I mean, I don't know. Is it annoying deorbiter that all he's ever say is you suck on Russia and are wrong about JDAMs and shit?
Okay. Oh my God. I don't even know. Like, I'd make fun of Hasan quite a lot, okay? And I've told him that. I've told him I disagree with his takes and make videos about him. And like, I don't care about people being like mean in their critiques. I don't give a fuck about that. I've never said that Hasan is a pro-Russia person. I don't think he is. I think he says things that benefit Russia, that benefit the Russian narrative, but that's different from being like a supporter of Putin. I've always pushed back against that claim. And you guys get mad at me when I do. I don't even know how these people who like have so many bad things to say about me just can't get a single thing right. Fuck me.
I mean, that's odd, but...
He is wearing Adidas. True. Yeah.
He makes a lot of content about your coverage. He hedges your side and gives cover for Israel. Ultimately, he's careful with his analysis.
Mixed opinions in the chat.
He had an entire hour on why you're anti-Semitic. Wait, what? No, he didn't.
Oh, no.
He did an entire hour on why I'm anti-Semitic? He does shit like...
Did you? I said that some of the things he says are anti-Semitic in their consequences. That was me pushing back, though, against Glitterbell, who thinks that he is, like, consciously and willfully anti-Semitic. I don't believe he is. It was in response to the Nasrallah bit where he very conveniently dodged the evidence of Nasrallah being a Holocaust denier and went back to some clip of Nasrallah supposedly fighting anti-Semitism, because that was the name of the video. But yeah, that's the Nasrallah video.
He's just farming the Destiny community. As far as I understand.
Oh, he's actually having a good scan.
How do you go from calling Israel an apartheid state a year ago to mocking people who think Israel is bad?
Oh, we're reading the comments rather than what I'm saying.
This is like what's crazy. Didn't he literally used to? I mean, I thought he was like he was saying Israel's an apartheid. He did videos on how Israel's an apartheid.
I still think what they do in the West Bank is apartheid. So I think it's fine to use that term to describe those conditions.
Are Hasan and his fans okay? Owen Jones stuns loner box with bizarre analysis. Yeah, I mean, look. Hasan freaks out on peers after weirdest pro-Palestine. Yeah, I mean, there you go. He's just, yeah, that's sad.
Uh-oh.
He's just another, he's just another content creator, I think, that is just farming Destiny's audience to varying success. It seems like he did the classic, like Hasan and his fans are really mad about Hasan drinking Coca-Cola, and then even went so far as to say Hasan freaks out on peers after weirdest pro-Palestine video, which objectively
What
was
is the full title of that video? Pro-Palestine interview. The pro-Palestine interview that's weird is the lady in the fucking... Wait. Where is it? It's the lady who dressed up like a fucking crackhead, like this person. No? Okay.
like absolutely eviscerated by the court of public opinion. No, he's very pro-Palestine and his community is too. That's what I thought too. That I'm genuinely shocked.
Oh, it's almost like the campus analysis doesn't really apply to the oh shit. Oh no.
Like I've mentioned before, Lonerbox showed me Beast Process, who is a phenomenal content creator, a smaller content creator in general. Like that's where I Hasan is a grifter, divorce, pedophile, both sides are genocide. Starts a kick stream later to be banned for number 2. Right-wing transphobe. Yeah, the Hasan is a grifter pipeline is crazy. Anyway, whatever. Who cares?
I will say, I mean, I know it's like kind of silly that he's just making these judgments based on a few thumbnails and like prompts from his chat. But at the end of the day, I think if Hasan did know like my full content and my full opinions and everything, like to him, the fact that I support 2 states and the fact that I'm very condemning of the Israeli right and the fact that I think Israel deserves to be a lot more held to account by the world stage when it comes to their behavior in the fucking West Bank and for their lack of a plan going forward in Gaza, etc. If I put forward all those claims and my takes on the history and all that, like he would still hear the things I say that are against Hamas or against like Palestinian historical narratives or whatever, and he would still think that I'm like basically a fucking Zionist genocide or whatever. Like it doesn't matter. Even if he did know all my content, he would still easily instinctively just shoehorn me into the fucking genocide, IDF, Hitler Youth, whatever the fuck. Like, because I don't think he's really capable of acknowledging the complexities of the region. I don't think he can do it. So yeah.
Cares.
Qatar and its mouthpiece, Al Jazeera, its funding of Hamas and its hosting of the leadership of Hamas in Qatar, you might have thought there'd have been an outpouring of rage at the Islamic Revolutionary Government.
Israel needs more international criticism. It needs more international criticism in the right place. I feel like the shit that they're doing in the West Bank, especially right now, with the fact that settlers and outposters have like fucking carte blanche to do whatever they want right now because of the cover of the war in Gaza. That's a really big problem. And the fact that Smotrich is like freezing funds to the PA and the fucking water like discrepancies. Yeah, there's so much to criticize in the PA right now and from Israel's side in the West Bank. But, you know, the war in Gaza has kind of like obviously got more of the attention.
What is this? He says because 70% of Jewish people are Zionists, therefore anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism, but more nuanced. I think you could have a genuine conversation if we were open to it.
What are we talking about?
A genuine conversation with who?
Oh, they're talking about me again.
With Lonerbox?
Uh-oh.
He doesn't like the word genocide? What the fuck does that mean? Lonerbox probably one deorbiter you could have a decent conversation with and not be contentious of content farming. He's pro-Palestine, especially West Bank, but definitely disagrees on some things. But he still says it's apartheid. Basically, he doesn't like the word genocide.
Oh, there's the problem, though.
At a certain point, you have to look at like the collection of thoughts and opinions that a person is presenting.
Okay.
I say this all the time, right? Like, I don't cover people who are ostensibly on my side, even when they are like being fucking annoying and calling me a grifter by design. For years and years, I was like, no matter how uncharitable or shitty people were towards me, I chose not to cover them specifically because I was like, I don't really give a shit. Okay. Partially because there are worse enemies out there, way worse villains out there to hyper focus on. rather than some dude who's like otherwise, you know, pro-LGBT, blah, 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 you know, like a pro-civil liberties for marginalized people, pro-emancipation. They don't have to subscribe to my entire worldview, because there are people out there with big platforms who are completely against everything I stand for, like the Ben Shapiros of the world, like the Jordan Petersons of the world, like the Steven Crowders of the world, like the Matt Walshes of the world, right? I feel like that is a more productive use of my time, rather than like hyper focusing on certain key differences in agreement that we have on issues. And the reason why I don't really give a shit about Loner Box in general is because, like, I maybe falsely or mistakenly assume that he was someone who calls what Israel is doing to be genocidal.
Is that like a basic red line, calling it genocide in Gaza? Even after the courts have come out, the ex-president of the ICJ, who literally read out the first ruling, said that it's not as clear-cut as people in the press were making it out to be. Is that like one of the first red lines for him? Fuck me.
And therefore has done coverage on the issue that is like relatively truthful. Now, having said that, the reason why I still don't care enough about tackling his perspective and making videos about him is because, like I said, it is about the collection of opinions that you have and the side that you present on certain things.
It's interesting that I commented on the constellation of beliefs beforehand, but I feel like Hasan actually kind of just admits there that he is in favor of people doing that. I remember I said this to Benny Morris. So like the problem is with trying to be objective when you analyze things, especially in a conflict like in the Middle East, where everyone has done horrible shit at different times, and everyone has their own part to play in why there's no peace. Like if you think Hamas doesn't have their part to play in why there isn't peace in the Middle East or even in that region, then you're kind of delusional. I don't know. Or even to an extent like Arafat, like as a leader of the PLO, not to mention Israeli leaders like people like Ariel Sharon. So I feel like it's interesting that he is kind of admitting that that's how he sees the world. Like when I was speaking to Benny Morris about his book, like the problem is with trying to be as objective as possible and trying to just tell things as they were. The problem is that you become, if you're reputable in any way, or if you're trustworthy in any way, you are so liable to just being hijacked by propagandists and ideologues on either side. Because Benny Morris's work, I've seen the same Benny Morris book get clipped and chopped by right-wing propagandists who really support Israel and don't want a Palestinian state, by left-wing propagandists. Like I've seen it on both ends, because you just have to select the right pieces of information that suit your narrative and exclude the rest, and you can just do that. And the problem is that you get not only an inaccurate understanding of the situation, but you also get an inaccurate understanding of what to do about the situation. Because if you only have that one side, then you start looking for solutions in all the wrong places. Like when people say, just end the apartheid or just end the genocide, like what does that mean? Does that mean give them voting rights? Does that mean withdraw to the 6-7 borders? Does that mean withdraw in a unilateral fashion? Does that mean withdraw in a negotiated fashion? Like it doesn't answer any of those questions. And if you can't see where the failures were on both sides in the past when it came to achieving Palestinian statehood or to achieving something other than what we have now, then you don't know where to find the right solution. That's why you have student protesters out there talking about boycotting Starbucks and Barclays and all these massive companies and like choking Israel out through these incredibly broad, maximalist, unachievable measures. That's why these protests I went past the one in my hometown today. It's gone. They haven't achieved anything.
Now, this is exactly, I'm going to turn this around for a second. If you see someone who appears to be progressive, appears to be on the left, but is constantly hitting left, constantly going after people like myself, claiming that I am, too pro-Houthi, or maybe even an Islamist fundamentalist, or things of that nature.
Being pro-Houthi is kind of a problem, though, isn't it? Oh God, it was so. this is contrary to polling, so whatever. But it was really funny asking Palestinians in the West Bank like what they thought of Iran or the Houthis, and they're just like, "What are they doing?" You know, like, do you think people in the West Bank really genuinely feel like they're being supported by the Houthis? Like, no. And not only that, it's not only about the fact that they're not really helping Palestinians in any tangible way. It's that they're hurting people in a very tangible way instead. What does it have to do with being left as well? The Houthis are not left wing. The Houthis are Islamic fundamentalists, authoritarians. They're not. Okay. He's saying you're making more videos on him who you kind of agree with than, I don't know, Ben Shapiro, who's objectively worse, or the stuff that's happening to the Palestinians. That's shady. No, it's not shady. When someone who is supposedly like the biggest progressive streamer on the platform, first of all, I've made a fuck ton of videos about Ben Shapiro, you fucking moron. What the fuck? Like, do you want to look through my channel and count all the Ben Shapiro videos versus the Hasan ones? The numbers probably aren't that different. My last video up here is Ben Shapiro. This one, like, Hasan's just here for the thumbnail. Most of this video has nothing to do with Hasan. This has a lot to do with Ben Shapiro because of his take on the San Remo conference. So there's Ben Shapiro, the Hasan. This is a Hasan debate panel where, again, I critique the Israeli side of this panel as well. Hasan, again, this is more of his fans, but okay. Where's the Ben Shapiro ones? They're from earlier on, aren't they? October 7th. Hasan Houthis. No Hasan here. Hasan and Ethan. Ben Shapiro. Ben Shapiro. Ben Shapiro. Like, I don't know. I feel like I'm... I feel like I'm a pretty equal opportunity shitter, right?
When someone is like focusing on that while there's an active fucking ethnic cleansing campaign happening, okay, that immediately shows me that maybe you're not super serious about
the most popular video on Maine is about Ben Shapiro. Oh yeah, the first one I ever did. Yeah.
Like covering these broader issues. Okay? That is the way I look at this stuff. The way I look at this stuff is like,
what's annoying about this as well is there's not really, I don't think there's ever going to be any engagement with any of my actual positions or on any particular part of the thing. It's just the kind of like, I feel like what's happening here is there's just a profiling going on with very little information. Like, I don't think he's going to watch any video of me actually talking about these issues and critique the arguments or make counter arguments. It's just, I'm just getting profiled based on statements from his chat and thumbnails that have ellipses on them where you can't even see the whole context of the thumbnail. Okay.
If I see you hyper focusing not on the likes of Ben Shapiro, not on the likes of I don't know, those who are like actively and consciously defending Israel's genocidal ambition, if I see you cozying up to people doing that sort of thing, if I see you maybe even traveling to Israel with people who have openly stated that
traveling to, again, Palestinians live in Israel as well, right? They're a fifth of the population. Palestinians, first of all, we went to the West Bank as well. I don't know if you think the West Bank is part of Israel. I'm sure you don't, Hasan. Like, Palestinians who live there want to be heard as well. The first thing that happened when we got through that fucking checkpoint in Kalandia was there's a guy, a fucking fruit seller, shouting to us in Arabic, and the translators, he's saying, like, film this, show everyone, show the world, show the oppression, show the checkpoints, show what we're dealing with. Like, that was the first thing that anyone said to us when we went to the West Bank. Those people want to be filmed. They want their message to get spread around the world. They want to be spoken to. They want to let people know what their opinions are. Eek.
Israel should do a genocide, and then worked off of that original sentiment to try to find like quick, piffy talking points that justify their positions, then it's like it's weird. It's still not enough for me to talk about it and cover it and make videos about it or whatever. But it does show me that like you're not really interested in the causes that you claim to care about. For example, let's say someone is pro-trans. This community is very pro-trans.
Also, this isn't true either. This is a really poor analysis of, even when it comes to advocacy. Because one of the things that Israelis were asking me, like Israeli left, in the context of Israel, they're not the same as Western left, were asking, there was a big thing that Israelis have the problem with is like, they really don't get why Israel struggles so hard on the world stage, about why they lose the information war, why they lose the propaganda war, whatever the fuck, right? And I'm someone who hates Israel a lot less than I used to, put it that way. And people were asking me, like, how does Israel do better at explaining their position to the world stage? And the one problem I noticed with Israelis, especially Israeli public figures, is that they don't want to concede anything. They want to concede absolutely nothing. So every time you bring up an atrocity, it's always, no, wait, well, that one actually wasn't as bad as it appeared to be, or that one's out of context, or that one actually was maybe kind of justified. Like they'll always get into a very hyper defensive reflexivity, or the more talented ones will be like, yeah, that was a problem, but let's talk about the war on 7 fronts with Iraq and the Houthis and Hamas and Hezbollah and Iran. Like they don't want to talk about Israel's failures ever. And the thing I said to one of them who was asking me about this was like, take it from someone who actually did change their position in Israel quite a lot, so especially since I was in my 20s and even more recently, is I got my positions kind of like slightly altered, not from people like Elon Levy, or not from people like Traveling Israel or Douglas Murray or Ben Shapiro. No, it was from people like Benny Morris or people like Shlomo Ben Ami, or people who actually, even to an extent, Avi Schleim, like people who hold Israel to account on the things that they did bad, because that's like a foot in the door, right? If you have a reliable source who is criticizing Israel, but is also criticizing points of Palestinian leadership or Arab leadership or in the surrounding countries, then that's a foot in the door. Which is why one of the things I tend to get from Israelis, it's not like when people say like, oh, thank you for your content and all that when they're from Israel, it's not always people saying things like, oh, thank you for supporting Israel against the fucking axis of evil or whatever the fuck. I don't really get that very often. What I tend to get is like people who are appreciative of me critiquing Israel in a reasonable, like a measured way. There's a thing that I would call, I think that the phrase I used once was like, it's advocacy through accountability. Like people who actually hold their side accountable or hold one side accountable are the ones that people are most likely to get listened to for critiquing the other side. So someone like Benny Morris, who holds Israel accountable for many things that they've done in the past, and even recently, people are more likely to listen to him when he's giving opinions about what the Arab leaders have done wrong, because he seems trustworthy. He seems like someone who is willing to acknowledge failures on both sides. So, yeah. He says Palestinians have not been perfect, but hyper-focusing on their faults is unproductive when they have no agency and no state. So, Salia, what you just said is racist. Of course they have fucking agency. What are you talking about? Like, you can look at them in the opinion polls. Like, there's a reason that no one in the PA wants to hold an election. It's because the agency of the Palestinians, when Palestinians answer polls, they support Hamas. When you go to these fucking refugee camps around, like, Jenin or Nablus, like, there are Hamas flags and, like, there's supportive statements of Hamas in them. Like, it's not just Palestinians as well. It's other parts of it's people who support them. It's not just Palestinians, it's Western, because I don't think the typical Western pro-Palestinian voice right now, whether it's Mehdi Hasan or Hassan Piker or people like that, I don't think they necessarily advocate in a way that has Palestinian interests at heart. Like, I don't think simping for the fucking Houthis and comparing them to anime heroes is a good way to advocate for Palestinians. I think it makes you look fucking insane. You like that turn of phrase, advocacy through accountability. Yeah, you use that. That one's for free, okay? It's not only that, it's also, if you want to critique, if you want to fight an enemy, if you think Israel needs to be held accountable for things, you should hold them to account for things that they actually deserve to be held accountable for. Saying genocide, like, I'm sorry, genocide is not the crime that Israel needs to be held accountable for. It's just not. If you want to reduce the charge to war crimes, which again is one of the most serious crimes any nation or individual can commit in the entire fucking world, you can make a case for that, because when it comes to war crimes, you can even look at Israel's war campaign in Gaza from the start until now. Look at the difference, for example, between the north of Gaza and the south. The north got hammered so much harder than the south. And when I was talking to someone there who, not a soldier, but someone who knows soldiers, one of the things that they kind of let slip a little bit was that that's not necessarily just because Hamas had a larger presence in the north. It's also because Israel has never fought a campaign with that level of ambition before, to destroy the entire military organization. With a conventional army, the goal is not to destroy the entire army, it's to make them surrender. It's to push them back and make them surrender, which is easier to do. What they're trying to do with Hamas is unprecedented. And one of the reasons that they bombed the north so much harder than the south is that they were still learning, like, which is really like a kind of gross thing to think about. It seems to be that they went as hard as they did in the north. This is one theory. It's because they thought they needed to hit the area a lot harder than they actually did. That's why in the south, it's a lot more. Now you hear them talking about surgical strikes and we're moving slowly and everything. It's because they probably thought that they needed to do a lot more damage than they actually did need to do to achieve their objectives, which means a lot of people, a lot of civilians who didn't need to die, died for Israel's objectives. Like, that's really fucked. That's a really strong charge you can bring up to them. But instead it's genocide. Right? Or the activity in the settlements in the West Bank, which has been far worse this year than it has been in any previous year since probably the Second Intifada. In terms of IDF raids, in terms of settler violence, in terms of settler expansion, in terms of encroachment, in terms of economic pressure that's being held against the PA by freezing of funding. Like, these are all massive problems. But if you're just going to go with this like low information analysis and one-sided analysis and just say, well, stop the genocide by boycotting massive corporations that everyone uses and is connected to, you're not going to get anywhere. So yeah, I think I do hear myself, rising young stars from Earth. I don't know what did I say that was wrong there.
We all know there are a shit ton of other pro-trans people, trans content creators, trans people themselves online on Twitter that sometimes chirp and maybe don't put their best foot forward. We know the reasons for why that happens, and that's fine. So if you were to make an assessment on whether someone is a pro-trans content creator or not, you could potentially look at the broader scope of their coverage. Are they constantly attacking anti-trans content creators, or are they claiming to be pro-trans while simultaneously shitting on trans people? Like, almost always hyperfixating on other content creators who are pro-trans, but maybe not sufficiently pro-trans. Does that make sense? That's what I look at. I look at who someone's enemies are, who they are positioning themselves against, to get a better understanding of like what their genuine worldview looks like, what they actually care about. I show you every day who I am against. I show you every day what positions I am against. I show you every day with my coverage. I show you every day with who I am criticizing, who I'm choosing to criticize. There's a million different people. I could have a disagreement with a shit ton of people.
I wonder, when he says that, does that mean that Hasan does agree with things that he hears from his own side, like Owen Jones or Mehdi Hasan, or is he sitting there disagreeing with things that they might say, but just not saying it because he thinks it's not worth it? Or I don't know if it's actually as strategic as he thinks it, as he's saying it is. I think it's easier for him because he's bought in. Like, he believes it, like he's pretty much in sync with most of them. I don't know, maybe. I guess actually, no, second thought. But this is a problem again, is like, because I know Hasan disagrees with second thought and people like Bad and Panada when they say that there's no such thing in Israeli civilian, which, by the way, 90+% of Palestinians don't even think that. Like, that is a Western position. That's all it is, right? Even when Hamas puts out statements, they say things like, we value human life, we would never kill civilians, all that. It's actually, every civilian who died was either a reservist soldier or it was actually the IDF who killed them. Like, that's, yeah. That's what they say. But Hasan doesn't really expend that, like, any energy at all. Actually, he promotes those people. He looks at their tweets and he fucking shouts them out and he goes on their shows and talks friendly with them. Even though it's a position which is nothing to do with international law, nothing to do with any kind of position that would lead you towards Palestinians getting any kind of statehood or autonomy or anything like that. Like, imagine that. Like, I don't know. What is your ideological position then? Is it what, just because they're left? As long as you're left, you get carte blanche to say that there's no such thing as an Israeli civilian? Like, what the fuck? And the best you'll get is, oh yeah, I don't really agree with that. It's ironic, like, Ethan gets more, like, the fact that Ethan Klein got more pushback from Hasan's community than Second Thought did for those statements. What did Ethan say that was even close in terms of lacking basic humanity as saying there's no such thing as an Israeli civilian?
There's a reason why you see the broadest scope of my haters run the gamut.
90% of Palestinians not believing all Israel is settlers. David, Sorry, wait, David. Settlers are civilians under international law. I don't know if you know that. They might think Israelis live on stolen land or whatever, but to think that they're not civilians, like that sentence, there's no such thing as an Israeli civilian. Yes, 90% of Palestinians will not say that. What the
What?
Of the pipeline meme that you were showing, people who like will defend the arbitrary nature of age of consent laws and how they should be abolished or whatever, or how it's actually not pedophilia but ephebophilia, or Nazis of different varieties. That's it. A lot of content creators on YouTube
10%
just like
is still way too much. Oh god, you guys are fucking insane. Oh no, here we go. Now I have to deal with the fucking Zionist nutcases in my chat as well. Oh god. How much do West Bankers know about October 7th? Okay, so first of all, there was a poll that said most people in the West Bank support October 7th. Then, second poll comes out and says, how many of you know what happened on October 7th? Do you still support it even if you've seen the footage? Then it's like a bit less people support it, but still most of them. So even most of the people who've seen the footage in polls say that they support it. Now, the problem is, I don't think people have a very clear understanding of why they supported it. I don't think they support it for the same weird Marxist-Leninist rationale that you hear from people like Second Thought or whatever, that there's no such thing as Israeli civilian because they're colonizers. I don't think that's how they see it. I think what the problem is, at least based on people I've spoken to or based on interviews I've watched, is that understanding why Palestinians believe things they do or answer questions in the way that they do is a lot of what they say is contradictory. Because on the one hand, you can get an interview with someone and get them to say that they are pro-peace, that they're against killing civilians, that they're against even killing Jewish civilians. You will get them to say that. Easy. But then they'll also say they support October 7th. So it's like, I think my opinion for why Palestinians support things like that, and even support Hamas, I don't think it's necessarily because they all believe in killing Israeli civilians. I don't think that's why. I think what happens is that they are in a position where their leadership they think is completely insufficient and doesn't do anything. And because of the typical cultural norm or cultural messaging that's gone around in that place, if you go to West Bank, there's graffiti all over the place of just a kind of stencil of a Kalashnikov or a guy throwing a stone, right? There's all that shit is all over the place. I think what happens is that a lot of them just kind of they'll support anyone who's doing something. Anyone who can make it look like they're doing something, they'll support it. I don't think they do it, but I don't think they do it for the same kind of rationalized reason that people like Second Thought support it. I just don't think that's true. That mindset is terrible but relatable. Yeah, it's kind of what it's again, when I say that Israelis don't want to concede anything, when I talk to them about their atrocities, that's true. They don't really want to concede that much, but they'll concede if they'll do a bit of acknowledgement of Palestinian humanity. Even the right wingers will. They'll do a bit. The reason that Palestinians are so much worse at conceding things, or why they feel like they support people like Hamas, who are just anyone who's doing something. I think the reason for it is because the conflict is not over. And for Palestinians, they're in a worse position because they don't have a state. They don't have the political achievements that they want. Israel does have a state, so Israel can afford to concede more in terms of narrative. Palestinians, everything they feel any concession they make, to them, it feels like they're conceding their entire national cause. But they don't rationalize it in the same way that people like Second Thought do. I've never heard a Palestinian talk in that way. Unless it's a PFLP person who speaks English. Yeah.
to do the holy, then the other / faming. What does that even mean? What did you just write? I'll give you a great example. There has never been a single moment. There has never been a single moment where I have allowed any kind of anti-Semitic sentiment to exist in this community. There have been plenty of people throughout the past 9 months that have come in to be yeah, see, we were right about the Jews. We banned them, right? Immediately. There has never been a moment where I'm hold on.
Wait, why is everyone reacting? I completely blanked on that. Let's hear that again.
There has never been a single moment. There has never been a single moment where I have allowed any kind of anti-Semitic sentiment to exist in this community. There have been plenty of people throughout.
That's probably because he doesn't have a very good radar for it. But again, he doesn't see it that way. I told you guys, like, he doesn't see, like, even when someone like Second Thought says there's no such thing as an Israeli civilian, or when Badam Panada says that there's the Israelis have been, the Western Jews, sorry, have basically been so subsumed into whiteness that you can't really be racist against them. Like, that doesn't count to him because, yeah, I just don't think he sees the contradiction. I don't think he sees the contradiction. Because apparently Israel is the only, quote unquote settler colony that being anti-Zionist to that degree will almost inevitably push you into supporting people who are massively anti-Semitic or downplaying the Holocaust denial of Hasan Nasrallah. Why don't you assume he's lying? Why give him any charity? It's not charity. It's just, I think that's a more accurate understanding of how people like Hasan think. Sorry. I don't think you guys understand how powerful denial is. A leftist will, a far leftist who is anti-Zionist and pro-Palestine or whatever, will do the most Olympic gold medalist mental gymnastics ever to avoid coming to terms with the idea that they support anti-Semitism. They just will. Or that some of their opinions have anti-Semitic conclusions. Even to an extent, right-wingers will do that. But, I was that mental gymnast before I came here. Hey. One more recruit for the Loner Box Irgun Revival Project. I'm sorry, that's a joke. All right. Did you see that Hasan was proven right about the policy thing about mass rape? I think it's only fair to mention that after you basically eviscerated him for months. Salia, I don't know what the fuck is wrong with your memory. What do you mean proven right about the policy thing for what, mass rape on October 7th? When did I ever argue that it was a directed order from Hamas on the top down? That's not the argument. The argument was that it was a systematic, widespread event, which it was. There were 5 locations, 5 completely separate locations that were attacked by 5 separate units, where there was a pattern of mostly women who were found stripped either from the halfway or all the way after they were killed. Or they were stripped before they were killed, but that's how they were found. They were found dead and stripped. Which, by the way, is a lot of what people said when they used when they built a case against the phalangists in Sabra and Shatila. Because looking through some of those reports, through Kahan and through McBride and through the witness statements, it seems to be that the big reason that people know that lots of rapes happened in Sabra and Shatila is for the same thing. Witness statements and a pattern of mostly women whose bodies were stripped. The commission did not find that militants received orders to commit sexual violence. Salia, I don't know if you're aware of what you're doing. You're doing the same level of intellectual dishonesty as someone who demands the fucking order from Hitler to do the Holocaust. I'm sorry. I never made the claim that it was definitely fucking orders to commit sexual violence. I don't know why you're suddenly moving the goalposts in that direction. I said that was the one valid contention you could make, but that's not the contention that people like Hasan and The Intercept were making. The Intercept's contention, Hasan, fuck me. Hasan brought them on and nodded along to everything they said. They were not contending with the idea that it was a systematic, that it was an order from the top down. They were casting doubt on every single story that was presented in that New York Times article. They were casting doubt with shit evidence for every single case, whether it was a witness statement or whether or not it was someone who found a body, but 1 or 2 family members who weren't even there said there's no way this could have happened to our loved one, or using the one Zaka guy who lied about 2 events and saying that in all of Zaka's statements, all of their volunteer statements were all discredited. That's really impressive that you tried that though, Salia. I thought they were casting doubt on the reporter who was underqualified. They did that as well, and they tried that with with tweets that she liked. One of which was really bad. The other one of which wasn't bad at all. It's just that Zay Squirrel said it was bad because they thought that liking a tweet that said something, it said 40 babies murdered. and it was a like of one tweet. And then Zay Squirrel said that she was propelling the 40 beheaded babies hoax, even though she liked a tweet with a video that didn't even say 40 beheaded babies. So yeah. But again, the New York Times issued a correction on the one part that they said that was probably wrong. The guy who said that he saw two girls stripped with skin on their backs. That one is contested by people from the kibbutz, by witnesses, not just family members or whatever who weren't there. But they issued that. They issued that there was contesting claims. Yeah, it only said, well, it didn't even say children beheaded. It just said that there were children dead and that some people were beheaded, didn't it? But again, liking a tweet that said that, like on October 10th or something. Not propelling the narrative as Zay Squirrel made out to be. Also, the worst thing though was, what was that girl's name? The girl who was found on the road by a witness at nighttime. Not Raz Cohen, he was a witness. There was the dead girl who was found outside of a car with her lower half exposed. Who the fuck was that? The one whose family members said this didn't happen, even though they weren't in the country. Gal Abdush. This is the worst thing The Intercept did. Because what The Intercept did was they said this woman, Gal Abdush, who was found dead outside of just beside a car with the door open, with her lower half exposed. And people said that it seems like she's been raped. Like the witness said that, who's filmed the body. And The Intercept said that this couldn't have happened, or like, The Intercept said that a family member argued that it couldn't have happened because she made a phone call 9 minutes before she died. So apparently you can't rape someone in the space of 9 minutes. I think the original time was 4, even 4 minutes. Brother-in-law said the media invented it. Yeah, he wasn't even a witness. But then what The Intercept didn't say here was they used family statements from I think it was 2 family members who said that it didn't happen. But for some reason, The Intercept did not use the statements from Gal's mother, who did say that she thought it happened. It's important that the world knows about the sexual assaults committed by these monsters, that they don't close their eyes. And for some reason, they just didn't. I heard about the rape my daughter went through before she was murdered. It was a chilling and painful moment. This is how they desecrated her soul and mind before they murdered her and her husband. This is her mother saying it. The mother said that Gal was raped and murdered in front of her husband. And they didn't, but they only cited the family members who agreed with them, even though all 3 of these family members, as cruel as it is to say, were not witnesses. So, I don't know why you're moving the goalpost. I'm not moving the goalpost, you fucking moron. Because The Intercept's argument, how can you read that and think The Intercept's argument is just about policy? They're trying to discredit individual stories from witnesses. What does that got to do with policy? Ooh. We're in the deep end now.
The past 9 months that have come in to be like, yeah, see, we were right about the Jews. We banned them, right? Immediately. There has never been a moment where I'm like, hold on, let me listen to what.
Oh, sorry. Let's just settle it right now. Salia, do you think there was a pattern? There's evidence of a pattern of sexual assault being committed by the militants and the marauders, the civilians who came in with them on October 7th. Do you think that? Do you think there's enough evidence to say that there was most likely a pattern of sexual violence on October 7th committed by Hamas? What do you think? Because that's all I ever said. Said there was a pattern. And I feel like every time I said systemic or systematic, I was very clear to say that you can have systemic action without it being ordered from the top down. Yeah, there is. I don't agree with Intercept people. I agree with Hasan that they didn't have orders for that. Do you think Hasan so when Hasan took those 2 Intercept guys on, why didn't he contest anything that they were saying when it came to individual cases? of witnesses? Why was he nodding along when they were talking about how Raz Cohen apparently looked away, but also said he was a witness? Because apparently, if you can hear things or if you look for some of the time, but not for the rest of it, you're no longer a credible witness. Fuck me.
This guy has to say when they're like a very clearly Nazi account that is now pumping
Wait,
out.
what are we talking about?
Anti-Israel information or whatever. Like, I have actually spent time showing people who those grifters are and what their genuine opinions are. I don't just
He did contest. Can you show me a clip of that? Of him contesting them, like when he's interviewing them?
cozy up to fascists specifically because they ostensibly are on my side on the issue of Israel, because they're not, because I understand that they're not. I understand that they're
We're still talking about
simply
me in the
using
chat. I will commend Hasan for not believing the phalangist allegations, despite there being like a million of them in this chat. You know what's so interesting about the phalangist shit is that in both Israel and Palestine, no one gave a fuck that I was Maronite, Lebanese. No one gave a shit. And there was enough of a sample because the guy who was taking us around the West Bank was introducing me by my real name and letting them know that I'm like Lebanese Maronite, because they were all like, yeah, every time they would see me, they'd think I was a Westerner, then they would hear my name and they'd be like, oh, well. They were all just really excited to meet a Lebanese person, because I guess I don't meet many of them. In the West Bank and in Israel. Because it turns out that even them, the Palestinians in the West Bank, they don't really, they don't do this thing, this like stupid thing where they think you should be held accountable for the crimes of your fucking ethnic group. I mean, if you're Jewish, they'd have a problem, but they don't care if you're Maronite. That's just, again, it's another Western thing where the only thing they know about Lebanon or about Lebanese Christians is the Sabra and Shatila massacre. That's all they know about it. That's probably all they know about the Lebanese Civil War. Most of them probably don't even know about the 15 other massacres that happened in that war as well. But, you know, you've got supers lined up. I know. Anyway. How many Palestinians you interviewed? Interviews, like proper interviews, I think we did like 7 or 8 regular, just like conversations or quick hellos and everything. There was maybe about 15, 20. How many did you interrogate, Drew?
simply utilizing Israel as a way to just do anti-Semitism. The higher order here is anti-Semitism.
They don't even know about Sabra Shatila. They are taught Israeli soldiers did that, not Christians. I have heard that. I remember my dad telling me that that's a very common Lebanese Christian. Well, he told me that was a common Lebanese Christian talking point, that the Maronites didn't do it. I didn't know Palestinians believed that. I thought Palestinians knew that Maronites did it. Huh. Wait, really? Is that true? Wait, can anyone else confirm that? I need my trustworthy ones. I don't know you that well. No Amto. Westerners also believe that? I don't care what Westerners believe. I'm asking if people in the West Bank, is the typical person in the West Bank believe that Sabra Shatila was actually, that the killings were done by the IDF? I know Lebanese Christians will say that. I've heard that a million times, but I don't know if Palestinians believe that.
That's simply just business when you're an online content creator. If Hasan was more open to more smaller content creators, then D-Man would not sit on this many orbiters. This is Hasan's own fault. 24-month subscriber. How come? Be honest here. Are Hasan good at gathering orbiters himself? Where do these small leftist content creators go to? You have no idea how to grow online. Remember, Hasan was once an orbiter. Not really someone we see much of. And Hasan has been going on for years on here. If all that's you can mention, that's still really bad. This guy mentions a bunch of content creators who are not orbiters, by the way. They're fully.
I got the impression growing up the Israelis did it and didn't understand it later that they allowed it. Wait, where are you from, Khalid? All right, let's go back. I'm sorry, I'm getting fucking one guide.
That's simply just business when you're an online content creator. If Hasan was more open to more smaller content creators, then D-Man would not sit on this many orbiters. This is Hasan's own fault. 24-month subscriber. How come? Be honest here. Are Hasan good at gathering orbiters himself? Where do these small leftist content creators go to? You have no idea how to grow online. Remember, Hasan was once an orbiter. Not really someone we see much of. And Hasan has been going on for years on here. If all that's you can mention, that's still really bad. This guy mentions a bunch of content creators who are not orbiters, by the way. They're fully fledged content creators in their own right.
Nice.
That is insane. Your demand is that I like literally collect fucking smaller content creators like Pokemon so I can create an entire community of dick rider content creators? That's fucking psychopathic.
To be fair, people like Mike and Frogan or Gramlow Denims, like these people are much more orbiters because they never actually like land on the planet, you know?
I know but he keeps a close group of orbiters to the point of heavy gatekeeping. No, man, you sound fucking unhinged. I treat people like they're human beings and not like look at it from the perspective of having a harem of yes men.
Do you, the Loner Box, never seen you criticize Destiny? Watch more, I guess. I feel like I don't get enough credit for this one. Like, you know, the whole clip from before October 7th, the pro-genocide clip. People don't understand that I was like the first one to start fighting with him on this. Like, for fuck's sake. Fuck. The cookie thing, yeah, the cookie files, that was a pushback against Destiny. There are a few here. I know what they mean, though. They mean like it needs to be, oh yeah, the Pallywood argument, yeah. The one about the fucking UN report not doing IHL and Great March of Return. Spoke about that on the podcast. I know what people mean, though. They mean it's just not enough. They mean it's not enough and it's not aggressive enough. Like, yeah.
Who are going to abide by all of my wishes and attack my enemies and defend me unconditionally.
You didn't push back on Vosh when you talked about... I literally told him that he was wrong about the Hamas thing, and I pushed back against the genocide thing. And what are you talking about? Fuck me. And I also pushed back on his chat with the narrative about them sterilizing Ethiopian Jews. Okay. God. I don't know. It's a good thing I have a good memory for these things, because you guys would gaslight the shit out of me otherwise.
That are either around my size or maybe a little bit smaller than me or even larger than me. But you don't even consider that to be a thing because you are looking at content creators not as human beings, but simply as literally a number, how many subscribers they have. Or that will show whether or not they are valuable as allies or not. Israeli, when I first came in here and said some things regarding my being Israeli, I saw some anti-Semitic comments directed towards me getting deleted from the chat, stuff like we're outside your house and shit like that, so thanks. Yeah, of course. That's crazy. Hasan is not carefully conducted. You aren't understanding what he's saying. Your entire behavior is weird, bud. Way to misunderstand what I'm saying. Yes, I am, but they're still doing this in many ways as a business. It's literally a job for most of them. I don't know why you're so understanding of people's like...
Is this about me now, or are we just... Am I just watching him get one guide? Am I just watching him fight with chatters? Destiny and I are bread pilling. I'm so glad I get to hang out with Destiny. I think y'all are forgetting how much Destiny is respected. Okay.
Like...
To be fair, as soon as the disagreements became big enough, like the one with Ethan, his audience went fucking ballistic against Ethan, so...
It's a major criticism that I have of other content creators who do stuff like that. Just like develop a weird sycophantic orbit of content creators who are just like suckling on their teat and maybe even changing their worldview seemingly as a consequence of that.
Jesus.
That's weird, dude. These are human beings with their own personal convictions, their own dreams, their own opinions, their own attitude. I think it's very weird to reduce them to like what they can do for me.
How does he know that about my opinions when all he's seen his thumbnails and got messages from his chat? I assume he's saying that about me. I feel like people forget that the first time I ever fought with a far left person on Palestine was like more than 2 years ago. It's ironic then that there's two narratives happening here, though. Like there's like two narratives here, which is one is that I've been this way all along because that's what Bad and Panada said, and then second is that I changed all my opinions so I could like hang out with Destiny. Yeah, which one is it?
Am I a fucking villain? I need to have my own legion.
Legion of marauders.
Not if the raped women are Jews. Israel is the only country in the world which, when it's attacked, gets...
Is that it? Is there any more? There's not even any phalangist discourse. That was a lot less than I expected. Okay, shall I watch that actual debate though? Because it looks interesting. Salam.
Basis, and I know what I'm talking about. Don't tell me about facts, yeah? What do you think you would have felt toward the people who does it to you? What do you think? It has nothing to do with education system. They don't need education system to hate us.
Okay,
we make them hating us.
We got the point. I appreciate it.